Hello, everyone, and welcome to Virtual JNUC. And welcome to today's session on Spelunking the Unified Log. I'm Kelly Conlin, and I will be leading today's session. I am a security solution specialist here at Jamf, which has me very focused on our security product, Jamf Protect. But overall, I'm here as a resource to make sure your organizations can be secure with Apple. Also, later on in the session, we will be hearing from Adrian with JCommerce to share some of his successes with Jamf Protect and Unified Logging. And he has graciously added a QR code to his LinkedIn if you want to connect with him and learn more about what he and JCommerce are doing. I'm going to pause here for a brief moment for you to review our forward-looking statement. It will also be available for a detailed review if you'd like under Resources. All right, so today we're going to cover a variety of topics related to unified logging. And my hopes for this session is just to give you a better understanding of what the unified logs are, the data that they hold, how you can get access to that data, how Jamf Protect can help, and finally, getting that data ingested into a tool like Splunk or a SIEM. So in my head, which can be an overwhelming place on its own, I like to think of the unified logs as the cave of wonders from Aladdin. This is where you can go looking for log data to do forensic analysis on a Mac. It holds all of the records for activity and events that have taken place on this Mac. And it really is just a hidden cave of fast knowledge and artifacts, just without the sleep-deprived sand tiger face as an entrance and needing to be a diamond in the rough to get access. But this is 2020 and tigers were big at the start of the year, so maybe Apple will toss in a tiger entrance authorization to make things super secure for Big Sur. All right, so let's go back in time really quick to 2016 to the launch of macOS Sierra. Apple has introduced a new logging system called Unified Logging, and this is now a new logging mechanism that provides a complete and high-powered API to capture a ton of data across all levels of the Mac, thus creating a unified system that centralizes the storage of log data in both memory and in a data store on the disk. So when Apple introduced unified logging, they also announced it would be taking the place of Apple system logs, as well as syslog, which is what was most commonly used for log inspection on devices that ran 10, 11, and older. Now, one thing to note, if you're not already familiar, unified logging was not just added to the Mac. It also became a part of iOS, watchOS, and tvOS. So in unified logging, we can view all of this data in one area. So within all of that data populated in the unified logs, you can now extract really significant details that are relevant to security or doing forensic analysis, and also just troubleshooting issues that the devices had. So when crashes are occurring, that kind of stuff, you can now view all of that within the unified log system. So for security and forensics, some of the things that we may want to keep tabs on are things like the login and logout activity, different applications interacting with the system, Bluetooth activity, and network access. Now, additionally, with unified logging, Apple made some adjustments in how it handled the logging of sensitive information. So with the changes, any personal information was essentially redacted and marked private. This meant that data could not be viewed by other apps on the system. So as you can see on the screen, I have two examples of the same log entry showing private data disabled and enabled. Now, for institutionally owned and managed devices, security teams need access to this data to ensure they have a complete understanding on what is happening, and they need the information about the user involved. Now, prior to Catalina, you could enable showing the private logs by turning private data on from the command line. But with Catalina, that ability was removed. But fret not, you can still enable private data with the simple mobile config profile that you can push down with Jamf Pro or other MDM solutions. So to get access to this data, it can be done a number of ways. You can simply view the activity feed as the data is flowing in the Apple Console app, or you can do some simple commands in the terminal to show the logs. Or there are third-party tools that you can install that will allow you to extract the data from unified logging. But for today's session, I'm going to cover how you can do that with Jamf Protect. So first up, we have the UI availability within the console app. So this comes loaded in the OS. And I like to think of it as your Mac's diary. This allows you to do live viewing of the data as it flows in. And it also has some filtering with the search functionality. Additionally, you can actually export all of the data right here within the app. And the console app is a great tool for getting your feet wet with unified logging and really exploring that data that's available. So now as the messages are starting to flow, they come in pretty quickly. So you can scroll or just search or click on a message that you would like to view more or just simply know more about. Most of the times, the log message is actually a lot longer than what is shown in the feed window. So when you actually click on a message in the bottom pane of the console app, you'll be able to see all of the message's details. Now, the basic anatomy of almost every message in the console app includes a date timestamp, the name of the process, and the message itself. But there are other details that can be included, but these three are the most consistent. Now, using these details from the messages shown in the console app, we can piece together to start building some predicates to create our searches in the terminal. And this is the technique that I actually first used when I started exploring extracting data from the unified logs and has been really, really helpful to understand what is captured and what I can search for. All right. The other most common method is using the log commands in terminal to pull up that data. Now, this is all done with the log command tool, which is very powerful, but can be pretty difficult to use initially. So today I'm going to focus just on using the specific log show command. So first up, open up terminal and enter log show, and then you can add additional keys like V for verbose or help to get more information. After you've added in any desired keys, you will need to add the predicate to search out for specifics. Now, if you're unfamiliar with building a predicate, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. First bit of advice is in terminal, you can type log help predicates to see the list of supported keys that can be used. And just a pre-warning, it is quite a bit. Now, the predicate condition that is added is using the functionality of NS predicate and are the specifics added to filter the data. So hopefully I haven't lost you, but the easiest way for me to understand predicates is to remember that it's just a query language. Okay, so let's stop talking about the abstract and actually build something. Now, starting out, you can take the detail from the messages in the console app to build your predicate filter. You can pull the processes, subsystem, category, or specifics written in the message itself. And then these are all a part of the keys that I mentioned a moment ago when using the log help predicates command in terminal. So essentially, you can keep the filter pretty open and just filter on the specific processes, or like shown above, only filter events that contain the specific words from your search that are written in that message. So this one here will show all of the messages where authentication was allowed. Now, there are a few third-party tools that you can use to get the unified logging data off the device without needing to go to every individual machine. But today I'm going to show you how you can do that with Jamf Protect. So now, using the same method of predicate building we just used, this can now be used in Jamf Protect to filter data from the endpoint and have it sent to a SIM or data endpoint of your choosing. And simply, you just need everything that was included after the predicate from the log show command and add that in as a filter in Jamf Protect. So to set this all up, in the Jamf Protect console, you just simply click Unified Logging in the left side pane. This is where all of your filters you add will be managed. And to add one, you just need to simply select Add New Filter. Once you're there, you provide a name, any tags, and then the predicate filter. Now, what's great is once all of this is set up, all of the communication is actually coming from the Jamf Protect agent on the Mac and then sent as a JSON file with some additional enrichment to include details like the host name, IP, and then any other tags that you may have added. And then all of this is sent directly from the Mac to your SIM or data endpoint. Okay, so now that we're adding the predicate filters in both Jamf Protect or using the log show command in terminal, you can be extremely open in your filtering and just monitor for all activities associated with a certain process. Now, doing this has the potential to produce a high number of results, as you can see here. And this predicate was just monitoring for all of the times the sudo process was used, which for security reasons could be beneficial as having that information for forensic logs. But this particular filter collected almost 4,000 events in just a few days on a small number of devices. So long story short, when you're keeping your filter vague or without additional specifics in that predicate query, it's just a deluge of data. It can be really hard to consume, like what this poor cat is going through. When you have tons and tons of data, it can be really easy for you to miss something or not get exactly what you were after. So we can be very specific within our predicate filter by adding in additional context to make sure our results are more exact. So in this example, instead of just looking for all sudo events, we want to see all of the times somebody has tried to do sudo, but entered the incorrect password 3 times and was not allowed the authorization. Doing this produces a much smaller number of events. So we've gone from almost 4,000 now to just 4, which produces a much steadier stream of data that is very easy to consume. Okay, so now talking on the predicate filters and creating those data streams, I'm going to pass things over to Adrian, who is a Mac admin at JCommerce, which is a valuable gold partner here at Jamf. He will be sharing his experience with Unified Logging and Jamf Protect and actually sharing some of the filters he has created and is actively using. Take it away, Adrian.
Thank you, Kelly, and hello everyone. At JCommerce, we help organizations to implement Jamf Pro and Jamf Protect. After successful implementation, customers ask us about insights from devices and about users' behaviors and habits. With Jamf Protect, it's very easy. Before I start, the QR code on the right will redirect you to all examples which I'm going to share with you. Let's start with grabbing security events. With sudo command, as you probably know, with great power comes great responsibility. You can capture every message typed by the user in terminal. First filter will capture all events involving sudo process and message sent to terminal. Still, you can modify filters to be more granular. Maybe some users are trying to use sudo even they are not in sudoers file, are standard users, or are not authorized. Second and third filters will send logs about these events. Next one is about network state change. If you want to monitor Wi-Fi networks, type of Wi-Fi security and IP addresses, this filter will grab all those informations for you. You can combine conditions and use logic to receive more entries with one filter. Personally, I prefer to split such statements. It's easier to control data flow in Splunk. Many organizations do not allow remote login with SSH or just want to monitor the activity of the service. The last example captures failed login with username and IP address. These filters are just an example of what could be monitored with unified logs in terms of security and how to narrow it to find answers. User experience could be critical for the success of the project. Also, better understanding of users' behavior helps to increase security. With unified logs, you can measure user actions and improve user environment. The following examples captures locking and unlocking screen using different methods. Now you will know how users lock device, do they lock the device, maybe they leave a device unlocked till launch of screensaver, and how many unlock fails and how that happened. We also monitor results of policies and scripts deployed to the devices. We can report everything using unified logging directly to Splunk and create a view with all details. You can use Logger to store information in unified logs. This is simple binary, but using proper convention you can capture any information. It can be triggered with policy, or you can return script result. Kelly mentioned about private data in unified logs. You can use configuration profile to uncover that information. Just remember to sign it before deploying with JAV Pro. And just short recap before we go back to Kelly. It's easy to use filters with JAV Protect. Just think about what you need, capture it with log command, and then paste predicate content to unified logging section in JAV Protect. You can use it for security, user experience, JAV Pro policies, or whatever you need. That's all from me. Thank you. Okay, back to Kelly.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for sharing what you've done and those awesome filters. Okay, so now we've covered the ways you can access the data. Let's take a quick look at the tools you can use to sift through that collected data. This is an example of Splunk, which is a widely popular tool for searching, monitoring, visualizing, and analyzing big data. And on the screen now is an example of Jamf Protect data getting piped in from just a search and seeing that data in its raw form. Now, because the data comes in as JSON, it's naturally easy for humans to read and write. So it's super easy for programs to parse information and generate reports. Now, to actually do the configuration of this integration with Jamf Protect, it's incredibly simple. You just need to add a collection endpoint into Jamf Protect's action config that includes the URL of the endpoint and any authorization token information as an HTTP header. And then once all of this is done, the Jamf Protect agent on the Mac will send this data over as a JSON over port 443. Now, Splunk also has functionality specifically as a SIM tool, which stands for Security, Information, and Event Management. And it is primarily used to aggregate event data from multiple security reporting sources. What I'm showing you here now is Splunk's Enterprise Security Add-on, which has built-in dashboards that will help rapidly speed up your SOC or security analysts to have the ability to monitor all of the security events for your organization. So to make things easier for you, I have added a QR code that actually links directly to the Splunk base for this add-on in case you want to implement it in your environment. Now, back to the normal out-of-the-box Splunk. We can take all of that data that's reported from Jamf Protect and create searches in Splunk that can be visualized and compiled into a dashboard as you see here. Now, what is special about this particular dashboard is it's actually showing data from both Jamf Pro and Jamf Protect. So it's showing the total number of events, charts of those grouping events, categories grouped by time and date, and even a map of the device locations by GeoIP. Additionally, what I've done here is I've added in an endpoint filter, so you can actually go through and see which devices have been the most active. and then filter this entire dashboard by that specific device. This is incredibly helpful when you want to have a more granular view on exactly what one particular device is doing. Okay, so to wrap things up, we've covered what unified logs are, the data that they hold, how you can get access to that data, how Jamf Protect can help, some awesome filters by Adrian at JCommerce, and then finally, getting all of that ingested into a tool like Splunk or your SIM. And again, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of myself and Adrian for attending our session today. Any time remaining, we will actually be available for you to answer questions in the window below. Thanks again.